After working in emergency medicine and surgery for 2 years in London, I decided both were not for me and I joined general practice in Cambridge and I love it. There are 7 big reasons as to why I decided a job in a hospital is not for me and that the GP's office is where I want to be. So let's discuss those in this video. Hey there, lovely person watching YouTube. If you're new here, hi, my name is Ajay. I'm a junior doctor in Cambridge. If you're already subscribed, welcome back. I love you to the stars and back. You know, there are these medical students who know exactly what they want to do once they graduate. You hear people saying, oh, I always knew that I want to be a brain surgeon and nothing else, or I wanted to be an oncologist or a cardiologist and nothing else. I was not one of those people. I genuinely enjoyed every single placement I had. During medical school, as a medical student, I sort of liked the medical subjects more because it felt like puzzle solving and a bit of detective work. But then during my internship, when I actually got to treat patients with my own hands, I actually started liking surgical subjects as well. And yes, that includes OBG as well. So I was sort of really confused as to what specialty I want to specialize in. This was a good problem to have because it just meant whatever specialty that I got into, I would end up liking it. But it was also difficult to make a decision about what specialty to get in. It was this confusion that sort of led me to the UK rather than going to the US. I made an entire video about it. I'll pin it up somewhere here. But yeah, this confusion is what brought me to the UK. And when I came to the UK, I actually didn't know what exactly I want to do. So I just thought, I'll do everything. I'll make myself a list and sort of do one after the other, sort of figure out what I like, and if I find something that I really like, I'll just stick to it. So it was first emergency medicine, second surgery, third general medicine / cardiology / gastroenterology, and fourth was urology. So I did close to a year as a junior fellow in emergency medicine in London. I loved the job. It was just so fun to see all these different sort of things, coming in, and you don't even know what sort of case you're going to see, and something comes in and then you see them, you make a plan. It's just very exciting. But in the UK, the A&E system is sort of crumbling, and I also hated the shift work. One day, your shift would start in the morning and the next day it would be an afternoon shift and then an evening shift. It was just difficult to have a routine. I couldn't, work out. I couldn't sort of plan my cooking and things like that. I sort of hated that bit, and I sort of realized that that's not the lifestyle that I want to have. Then I did about 8 to 9 months as a junior fellow in colorectal surgery. I had previously got offers in orthopedics. I'd got a pediatric neurosurgery offer in Birmingham. And then I got this colorectal surgery offer. I decided to take colorectal surgery because I was sort of always fascinated with surgery of the gut, gastric surgeries, intestinal surgeries. I always found them interesting. But then, after I started working, kind of realized it was not really that exciting, at least for me, because a lot of these bowel surgeries takes just so long. And as a junior, you don't get to do a lot of things. So I found that a bit boring. During this time, I also sort of came to a realization that hospital specialty training in the UK is not that great. It's actually quite terrible if you think about it. First of all, the training is long. It's 8 to 10 years. And during that, you'll be moved from one place to another every 6 months or, every year or so. So you can't really settle down in one place. And the training itself is rubbish. You have some classes here and there where you're taught something, but there's absolutely no bedside teaching. If you're in surgery or something, they do teach in theaters, of course, it's a training job, but there's no bedside teaching. The consultant doesn't ask you questions during rounds. It's just oh, what happened with this patient? What have we done? That, blah, we'll do this. Next patient. Unlike, in India and also in the US, where the consultant goes on ward rounds and he's quizzing all the juniors, that sort of forces you to learn, that sort of makes you learn. Even when it's not you that someone is asking question to, you're listening to your colleagues talking and stuff. So you're learning things by just absorbing it passively. That absolutely doesn't happen in the UK at all. And the worst bit is that even after you finish training, a consultant job is not guaranteed. I know a lot of people who have finished their training and still working as post-CCT fellows and have not got a consultant job. And that, to me, is a terrible deal. GP, on the other hand, you have 3 years of training, as all residencies should be. After that, you're gonna get a job, sort of wherever you choose to be. I sort of liked all specialties and couldn't really choose one specific specialty. And what I realized is that with general practice, I can literally practice all of these specialties on the same day. I don't have to choose. I can sort of practice all of them. I didn't know that this is how it works here, because when you say GP in India, you usually mean someone who's finished, their MBBS, hasn't done their residency, they see like common ailments, cough, colds, fevers, and things like that. So I thought that's how GP was gonna be here as well. But here it's completely different. All these common coughs and colds are usually seen by the pharmacist, and I almost never see such cases. Even if I see, it's probably like 1 or 2 a day, and it's not like the most common things I see. The things that I see are more like exacerbation of asthma, complex ear infections, complex mental health diseases, which is so very common in the UK, unfortunately. Anxiety, PTSD, depression. The other day I had this patient who was like a registered sex offender on like the national registry, serving a life term. He had like all these multiple fetishes and things like that. So it's quite interesting mix of cases that we see in general practice. I also love the fact that I can treat a 2-week-old baby and that baby's teenage brother, that baby's 40-year-old parents, and that baby's 60-year-old grandparents and 90-year-old great-grandparents. I just love that I can like sort of see everyone and treat everyone. I also love the fact that I am the doctor for everything. Like here in the UK, you can't directly go and meet a specialist. You have to first see your GP for absolutely everything, unless it's an emergency. If it's an emergency, you go to ED, you go to A&E, and you'll be seen there. But whatever is not an emergency, you always have to see the GP first. So even if I don't get to like manage all conditions, I get to see all of them. I get to assess them. I get to make my diagnosis, and it's just so interesting. Like someone comes with like some very rare, autoimmune disease, although I don't probably end up making the diagnosis, like I can recognize the fact that this is not something that we usually see.
It's not lupus.
What could this be? What are the tests I can do? And a lot of the times we make the diagnosis in primary care itself. So yeah, I found that like really fascinating and really, really deeply satisfying. I like having a routine. I like getting up at the same time every day. I like having my breakfast, a relaxed breakfast. I like reading a newspaper. Yes, I read a physical newspaper. Yes, I know your grandpa also does that. And then I like going to work on the same time, doing sort of similar sort of work, coming back home at the same time, and going to gym, coming back home, Netflixing without the chilling. And this is very difficult to do working in the hospital when you have so many night shifts, so many long shifts, evening shifts, and things like that. Whereas in GP land, work is always 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. You always get your weekends off, and it's the same thing week after week. And because I'm a trainee, I get Wednesdays off every week. I have half a day of teaching on Wednesdays, and the second half of Wednesday is like personalized learning time, so I can sit and study whatever I want. I get half of Tuesdays for teaching at the practice where I am. I've been blessed with an absolutely amazing trainer, and Tuesday afternoons are like one-on-one, teaching sessions with my trainer. So I essentially end up working per se only 3.5 days a week. Now, this is absolutely mind-blowing and amazing, considering that in India I used to work like 60-80 hours a week as a junior doctor. I hope I haven't jinxed anything by saying this, but I love the fact that it's like that. I mean, even though it's like 3.5 days of work, I do have a lot of other responsibilities like portfolio work. I have to do a lot of studying, so it's not like relaxed, it's not chilled. It doesn't feel like I'm in a resort chilling, but compared to India and, sort of similar in the US, much better. Because GPs are generalists, there are a lot of other things you can do after you're a GP. You can specialize in occupational health, you can do sports medicine, you can do public health. I know people who have special interest in dermatology. I know people who do endoscopies. I know people who do flexible cystoscopes. So you can do a lot of things as long as you're trained for that. So essentially you have to do a specific number of these procedures or see a specific number of this patient group. And then you have to be signed off by a hospital consultant saying that you are fit enough to see all these patients on your own. Once you have that, as a GP, you're allowed to see these patients. There are some people who run outpatient cardiology clinics, and they're GPs who have sort of trained in cardiology for a couple of years after being GPs. So that flexibility, I sort of like it. Like I can just do, in a sense, anything I want to. That's quite interesting and important for me. There's a very big shortage of GPs and primary physicians all over the world. So essentially for the next 20 to 30 years, my job will be in very great demand. And the job is such that like technologies like AI won't be able to like sort of take over the job. So the most important thing for me that GP offers is this flexibility as to where I want to like work and where I want to live. Like after training, if I want to like be in Cambridge, I can be in Cambridge, I'll get a job here. If I want to go to London, I can go there, I'll get a job there. If I want to go to Canada, I can go there. If I want to go to Australia, I can go there. If I want to go to, I don't know, UAE, I can go there. Because your job is in demand everywhere, you will find a job essentially wherever you want to. Now contrast this with a hospital specialist. Dr. Rohin Francis of Midlife Crisis has the best medical YouTube channel, and he's a god tier, absolutely the best medical YouTuber of all time. I absolutely adore the guy, if you didn't realize that. But anyway, like he trained in cardiology. He's a consultant cardiologist now. He trained in one of the best hospitals in London. And after his training, like when he got his consultant job, he couldn't continue in London. He had to move out of London for his consultant job. So yeah, I just don't want that sort of, rigidity when it comes to my career path. The only problem is like if I decide to go back to India, being a GP like here is not a thing there. That could be quite difficult, but the concept of family medicine is coming up rapidly in India. And also I could, clear MRCP and I could be like a generalist physician, just see outpatient general medicine sort of cases, which is sort of what I like to do anyway. So with any career decision, the potential amount of money you could make, with that job will come into the picture at some point. Thankfully, I was privileged in a sense that whatever specialty that I chose to do, I would make decent, okay amount of money with any specialty. But I think the potential is the best with GP because essentially, look, the training is short. In 3 years, you start on a basic consultant salary, which is about 90,000. You can go up to 100,000 pounds if you do extra shifts. You become a GP partner, like a partner in a practice. So essentially, you're like a business owner. You'd be making 150 to 200,000 pounds if it's in a good practice. Or you could just set up a private company and do locum shifts. You could make anywhere from 120 to 160,000 pounds. And if you have your own company, like you won't be paying much tax because you're taxed as a company, not as an individual. So you can, potentially save a lot of money. But more than this, there's a specific type of flexibility that comes in when you're a GP. So as a locum doctor, I could just work 6, 8, even 10 months a year and take the rest of the year off and just travel and do whatever I want. In fact, through a friend, I know this GP couple who run their own practice. They work for 6 months a year and the rest 6 months of the year, they just travel the world with their kids and, they get locum doctors and others to, look after the practice. But no other job in medicine gives you this kind of flexibility. And to me, that was the most important thing. Like you could pay me half the salary of a hospital consultant and give me half the year off. I love that. Like even as a hospital consultant, if I want to, sort of sacrifice half my year and go traveling, it's actually quite difficult because you'll have your lists, you'll have your, sort of patients that only you can see. It's just so much easier with GP and I absolutely love this. I love the concept of flow state, and in fact I believe it's the only productivity hack that actually works. I love it so much that I worked on it so much that I invented a term called flow time, and I've made a video about this. I'll link it up here. I think that has helped a lot of people. It definitely has helped me, so if you're curious about that, you can take a look here. But basically, flow is a state of mind where you're so immersed in whatever you're doing that you don't feel tired, that you actually, sort of enjoy it and go into that, what people call the zone where you just like feel very relaxed and you're getting the job done. So that's the flow state. And the biggest thing that prevents you from going into flow state are distractions. Now, working in a hospital, it's full of distractions. There'll always be colleagues around who want to come and talk to you. There'll always be the nurse who wants you to do something, put a cannula or do some blood tests or medications. There's always crash calls going off. There's always that bloody bleep going off. It's just filled with distractions, and I don't like distractions. Whereas in GP, I get an office for myself. The door's got my name on it. Go sit there. I've got a nice desk. I've got two nice monitors and a computer that actually works. In comparison to the NHS computers, this feels like, being on like supercomputers or something, because it actually works the way you want it to. No one is coming to disturb you. The patients come to you, to your space. You feel comfortable there. The patients come to you. You see the patient, you send them, and then you relax, take a couple of minutes off, then call the next patient in when you're ready. It's just so relaxing. And then during lunch breaks, I go and meet all of my colleagues and catch up on the banter. So yeah, that's why I love my job as a GP trainee. But like I said, it's not all like sunshine and laughter. There are bad things to, being a GP as well. Sometimes it can get a bit monotonous, although for me, I don't think it's going to happen for me, because I see my, consultants list and it looks very interesting as well. Definitely much more interesting than mine. So I'm looking forward to, being more senior and, doing all those more difficult cases. There's a bit of like admin work. You have to read and write a lot of letters to hospital colleagues and hospital specialists. There are like social security, social care issues that you have to deal as a GP. So you're not just doing medicine, but you're doing other social work sort of thing. But that's something that I personally like. So it's not a big issue for me, but for some people, it could be a big issue. Even though it's, as a trainee, it's just 3.5 days a week. It's not exactly that, because you have to do a lot of studying. And like, even after I come home, I have to think about portfolio work. I have to study, I have to prepare, sort of like if I know I'm going to see a big case the next day, I'll have to prepare for that. It's not relaxed in any sense. But when you compare hospital medicine and general practice, I don't think there's any sort of comparison at all. Like the general practice, just the lifestyle, at least for me, is just like miles ahead of what a hospital job could offer. I do sort of miss sometimes the adrenaline of being in a hospital and, managing a heart attack, or like, oh, I got the stroke, I thrombolized it, whatever. I do miss it. I do have hospital rotations for the entire year next year as a second year trainee. So I'll go back to it. I'll just see how that goes. I've got very interesting rotations at one of the best hospitals in the UK. So I'm really excited and looking forward to that. But for now, I love general practice. And if you're considering general practice, give it a shot. It's amazing. I love it. I'll see you in the next video.